Okay, welcome to Two Fools Walking, new pack tutorial. So this was the pack I made a good couple of years ago now to take on the GR5. That was a fantastic backpack. Then I made this backpack last year, took that on the GR5. That was a fantastic backpack, but I always saw this one more as sort of a bit of a prototype backpack. It was made out of a much less expensive fabric, but there's a tutorial up on it for our channel. It was actually a really fantastic backpack, and it really taught me a lot about making backpacks and about the sort of features I wanted in a backpack. And now this video is going to be building this backpack. Now this is the best backpack I've ever made by a long way. It is made out of Dyneema fabric, so it's made out of a... I can't remember how heavy the weight of the fabric is. 1.43 ounce Dyneema fabric, so it used to be known as Cuban fiber. This is the pure Dyneema stuff, so that it's not the hybrid. It's got no laminated polyester face. So it's 100% Dyneema and Mylar threads, or Mylar with laminated Dyneema threads in it. So let's talk through the features on this backpack. It has got our style big reach around pockets, so you can easily get in from anywhere into the backpack, reach around, and you can carry two water bottles. There's a water bottle in there, so you can carry your water bottles in there like that. It's got a redesigned over-the-top strap, so it's a Y over-the-top strap, so there's two little line locks here that go around to a big hook here, so it's super easy. You can just get it on, get it off, change the height of it. And this is a bit of a design change, this fork design from the original over here, which has had one strap. This was a real pinch point in the original design. It's one of the big reasons I built another backpack, because this would cause the shoulder straps to deform in an uneven way, while this new design completely removes that. It's got the same ultra wide straps. These things like completely go over your shoulders and make it super duper comfortable when you're carrying loads that you probably shouldn't be carrying in a frameless backpack state. Good. Okay. What else do we have? We've got the big pockets on the front because we love to carry lots of water up front. So these things carry 800 milliliter bottles, no problem, and then you can fit your phone in the front as well. And I also splashed out on some nice fancy blue stretch mesh on the bottom to make it a bit cooler and change the design. So originally I used a Palante style side entry bottom pocket, while this one uses a Nashville cutaway style front entry, which just makes the construction a bit easier of the backpack. Construction wise, some things have changed. So I've still got the main body of the backpack made out of one continuous piece of fabric, so it makes it more waterproof. But I've also made the back panel wraps around and just continues all the way around, so there's no seam here, which is really cool. It just means the whole backpack is only made out of two seams, increases its waterproofness, increases its durability, less seams, all good. I've also fully taped all the seams on this backpack, so if you come right up close, you might be able to see with the camera. Maybe not, there's a, you can see like the taping inside. So I actually made some Dyneema tape by getting some double-sided adhesive and making my own Cuban tape. So I hope you enjoyed the videos. It's going to be pretty detailed. I haven't actually made the video, so I can't tell you how fantastic they are, but I'm sure they will be. So yeah, I hope you make some backpacks, because they're actually really easy to make, addictive to make. Is there any stats I haven't told you? Oh my goodness, I haven't told you how heavy it is. That's the biggest thing. This is an ultralight backpack. I should have been telling you that very beginning. It's ridiculous. It weighs 8.3 ounces, which is 235 grams. So it is way lighter than anything you can really get on the market at the moment. This backpack was pretty light. This was like 280 something grams. I think it was like 9.5 ounces. These new fabrics really brought it down. Oh, and the black fabric, for anyone who's interested, is 160 denier Cordura, and it's uncoated fabric. So this whole back pocket is completely permeable to water, which is really nice because it doesn't fill up with water and you don't have to put any drainage holes on it. Hello, welcome to day one of the pack build project. I am super excited. So I've got out my 160 denier Cordura. This is a non-waterproof fabric, and I'm going to be using it to make the back pocket of the new backpack. And it's very exciting. So this project's going to be a bit different from the last one. I'm going to work on it sort of one day a week over the next sort of 6 or 7 weeks. So it's going to be sort of my Corona hobby project, which I'm really looking forward to. I just went up and set the sewing machine outside. It's working beautifully. I've got a new special foot, which is called a walking foot attachment for it. So hopefully my sewing is going to improve. And first step is to mark it up. So I'll switch to the fast motion camera, and you can and watch. Okay, so I finished marking up the top, the back pocket. I just added in one extra line off camera then that is halfway along this 4cm gap because I realised I was going to need a guide to sew the hem. So next up I'm going to cut it out. Okay, that's all beautifully cut out, up to the workshop to sew the hem. Okay, the corners, I just put a little tack in that so I don't mess it up when I sew it. Now I'm just going to go around and do this big draw cord channel stitched in. It's going well so far. You may notice I haven't put any big eyelets in, and that's because this pack is going to be crazy light. So the reason I folded those corners and the peak over like that is because it's going to allow the end of the draw cord to just come out the end without having to put an eyelet in, which is just going to, save me four metal eyelets. Okay, so that's the draw cord and hem all done on the top pocket. Just wanted to draw attention here. I put these little bar tacks in at each end. You can see, yeah, and so that's because there's going to be quite a lot of force underneath this bit here pulling it up, so I wanted a nice strong bar tack. So I just did that with the zigzag mode on the machine, and that looks really good. So I think that's going to be me today. I'm going to pack up and start the next bit next week. Right, it is the weekend. That means I get to make some backpacks. Super exciting. Gonna draw up and mark up the the Dyneema this morning. First time I've worked with it properly. I got a new pen in the mail sometime this week, which has got a finer point on it. It's a paint pen like the other one, so I should get some... Ah, man, I forgot the keys for the shed. Okay, got the backpack fabric laid out, got my mock-up there, which I've transferred over from my CAD designs, which I don't think I've showed previously, but I've got some fancy CAD designs for this backpack going on. Now it's time to set up the camera on my little tripod, which is actually a music stand, and cut to the slow-mo, or the long-mo. Super duper, I've marked up the back panel. Let's take a look at it. So that came out really well. That pen was much thinner than the old one. I managed to get much more accuracy in my line. So this is the bottom of the backpack. This is the back panel, and then this is part of the roll top here. This is where the straps are going to attach. and this bit is going to have an extra piece of reinforcement fabric attached to it there. So that's come out really well. The next thing is to draw the other three, this is the two sides and the front panel of the backpack all one piece. And I'm going to draw them in that piece of fabric there now. Looking fantastic. It's all beautifully marked up. Now it's time to get the scissors out. I've measured 100 times, and I'm only going to cut once because it's a lot of fabric to, or a lot of money's worth of fabric to screw up. So when you're doing this, really, really, really make sure all your measurements are 100% correct. And when you're cutting it, don't screw up and cut like this line. You know, when there's 3 lines next to each other, make sure you're cutting the middle one, not the ones either side, and so on and so forth. Be really careful with this step. Okay, that's the Cuban all cut out for this morning. Now it's time to move on to this beautiful, beautiful blue Cordura stretch, 4-way stretch stuff I've got. Now I think I'm only going to use this for the bottom of the pack and not for the stretch front pockets because it's a little bit on the, it's less stretchy than the black stuff, and I really need a lot of stretch to fit the bottles in. So it's time to cut out this bottom bit. This is going to be a wrap-around bottom styled like the Cutaway Packs backpack. I'll draw it up and cut it out. Okay, there's the elastic bottom pocket all cut out. I put on some extra markers just to help me when I hem this top seam. Now I think I'm going to cut out this reinforcement panel, which is where the straps cut on. I'm going to use some of the black 160 denier Cordura, the same stuff that I used to make the back pocket of the backpack. So let's mark it out. Okay, that is cut out, marked up. I added in some parallel lines to the top that was 2 and 2 and 4 centimeters. I think it's time to go up to the shed now and hem this bottom up there and hem these 2 edges, and then I don't think this piece of fabric will get sewn until next week, so I'll put it in the shed. Okay, so to reiterate, I'm going to fold this 2 centimeter hem up here and the same across here. Okie dokie, so that's all hemmed. Let me give you some close-up. You can see along the top and along the bottom, and that's what it looks like on the inside. It matches up perfectly with what I've drawn out on the Cuban. Really cool, you can see through the Cuban. Makes it much easier. You don't have to draw on both sides. Now it's time to work with this stretchy bottom pocket. Now, this is really what I bought the walking foot for, dealing with this stuff. This can get really fiddly, so when you're doing it, just everything sort of just stretches. And you just can't worry about it too much. Like, it all just stretches Hopefully it should be a bit easier with the walking foot, but just go for it. Also, when you're sewing the top hem on this piece of elastic, it's really important to use a zigzag stitch, because otherwise you won't be able to stretch it along the hem, which is important if you have a straight stitch. Well, that came out fantastically. The walking foot did an amazing job. It was a pleasure to work with. Now it's time to stitch this round onto the bottom of the backpack. And there it is. Even with the walking foot, it wasn't trivial, but it was still a lot easier than without it. Obviously, I straight stitch here because it's stitched onto a non-elastic fabric. I had one little hiccup on the bottom here as I had to realign, but it doesn't matter. This all it's in the seam allowance anyway, so it's going to disappear. Really happy with how that went on. I think it's time to sew the big pocket onto the other main panel of the backpack. Top tip when you're sewing this on, you might have noticed in the video, the first time I sewed with the elastic fabric up, that didn't work as well for the other two sides. I flipped it and sewed elastic side down, and that fed much better in the machine. Oh, I've just realised actually, before I move on to any of the other panels, I should do these two hems along the top. So I'm going to do one fold of the hem now, while the backpack is in two pieces, and then I'll do the last hem, so that, and then I'll do the whole thing when it's stitched together into a tube. It's just a bit easier to sew it when it's flat. Obviously, this is the outside of the backpack, so you want to sew your hem inwards like that, because you don't want your hem sticking outwards when it's done. Okay, can you see I've got that hemmed, and one thing, it's really easy to sew Cuban just to itself. It folds over and it just holds a crease like absolutely anything. It'd be such an easy fabric to make a tent out of, I reckon. Done the top one here as well. So now I'm going to work on this pocket attachment. So the way to do this is you want to attach the sides first. I'm going to attach this side, and then I'm going to attach that side, and then we'll pin things out. So there we go, I've pinned it up. The way you want to do this is you find your points where you pin it to, and as in the spacing on the backpack was marked on the design, and you pin the 2 points together that you want to match perfectly, and then you'll have a big flappy bit, and then you just take 2 little pleats in it and push them outwards and get them to the edge. You want to keep them about 1 centimetre from the edge. You don't want to get too close to the edge, but fairly close to the edge. Give yourself a little bit of space to make things easy. And now I'm just going to whip along the sewing machine, do that stitch, and that's going to be the last bit of today's work. There we go, this is where we're at after today. I've got the bottom pocket, front pocket and reinforcement already, and you can see all the big thing, Cuban, with a hem along the top. It's been a super successful day. Next weekend is time to move on to the straps, which are a bit tricky. So I'm going to really make sure I take my time with them. See you again next week.